Good morning. The Jefferson County Post would like to welcome Dr. John McGraw, Commissioner. You wear a lot of hats in this county. He's a Commissioner for the 4th District, correct? For the 4th District. He is, as I said, a physician. You're with Knoxville Orthopedic Clinic in the Jefferson City office. Kind of, that's your ball game over there, and you handle that. Beyond that, he is also a local radio personality.
Just that's new. Yeah, personality. I called myself a DJ one time, Christy, and Steiner corrected me. He said, "You're a morning host." Okay.
Well, lots of hats, and within the county commission also, you are also the chairman of the finance committee, which is one of the more, I guess, when you look at the structure of committees, it's one of your top tier committees.
I would say so. And fortunately, David Seals, the vice chair, and he keeps me on track.
Now, the finance committee is different than the budget committee.
Very different. Very different. Yes.
The finance committee is composed not just of county commissioners, correct? The finance, you have department.
Yes. We have the highway commissioner, Mr. Tipton. We have the school superintendent, Dr. Edmonds. We have the mayor, of course, who is a part of everything that we do, Alan Palmieri, as well as 4 elected officials. I didn't run for the finance committee, so to speak. It was something that I know a little about finance and money from my years in both banking and the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. But some of my friends on the commission, I guess, thought I would be good, and then they wanted me to be the chair. And it's been quite a ride, because our first duty, of course, was to choose a new finance director when Mr. Darrell Helton resigned to move on to the Chamber of Commerce, and that was quite a big selection process.
I was actually attended that interview process, and your choice, which was Langdon Potts, was the committee's choice. And he has done. I'm assuming the committee's happy with his performance.
We're extremely happy with Mr. Potts. You know, he had this great, vast experience in the private sector. Clayton Holmes, CFO. He had worked right out of college at Carson Newman. He had landed a good job and had been a certified public accountant. He really knew the private sector. So my only personal hesitation with Langdon was that he had not done a lot of government work. However, Clayton Holmes, as you know, Christy, is contracting with the government all the time, so he knew enough about government contracting to where he realized the legal things, and so he went immediately to learning this. I think he's hit the ground running, and he has come up and going, I think, much faster than any of the rest of us would have expected. He seems to really be doing a good job. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Sherry Bledsoe, his number 2 lady over there at the finance office. She has worked well with him, even though she submitted her resume and would like to have had the job. She has stayed on with him and is doing a great job. They're a great team, and I'm very happy with it, and I think the other members of the finance committee are as well.
And this would arguably be no one could say this is not a difficult budget year, I don't think. I know that you don't sit on the budget committee. The budget committee is comprised of, 10 members, 1 from each district, and you all switch off with the nominating committee, correct?
That's right. So 2 years usually it's nominating, 2 years budget. You know it even better than I do. And so, being the senior commissioner from District 4, I gave Russ Turner the option, and Major Turner said, "I'll do budget first time around." And I'm glad he did, because the budget committee meets a lot more frequently than the nominating committee. So I think for a new commissioner like I am, even though I'd been attending commission meetings for several months before I even started to run, it was an opportunity for me to learn a little bit more of the process. Now, I have filled in for him a time or two, which we can do, which is a nice thing, so that if he's out having to do ROTC things from his job at the high school or whatever, then I can fill in, and I'm still a voting member. But he's been at virtually all the meetings and has done a super job for us. But it is budget committee right now with this year, and you mentioned it. what an absolute nightmare. I mean, it really has been for all of us on the commission, because we just ain't got enough money.
Yeah, started out 3.8 million in the hole. In essence, double the wheel tax. Went to citizens chose not to take it to referendum. Budget committee made a plea, pretty much saying we will commit to a goal of a 0 property tax increase if you let this stand. Now I know that you're not on the budget committee, and that was the budget committee's. That was their assertion, was that they would try for 0 property tax. Do you think that's something the full commission shares, you personally and the full commission, or do you see a way out of this without a property tax increase?
Well, it's all on the backs of the budget committee. You know, they're the ones that said, let's do things sort of the reverse that's been done before. And I applaud them for doing that. You know, if we had every single person to come in front of the budget committee and eventually the whole commission and say, we have a worthy cause, please fund us, then, you know, it pulls at our heartstrings and we say, oh yes, I hate that all the little children are not going to be taken care of, the pets, the animals from our county and things like that. And so by the time you finish, not only are you 3.8 million in the hole, you'll be 5.5 or maybe 10 million, because there's so many worthy things that are happening in our community. However, this is taxpayers' money, and you have to be fiscally responsible. And so I applaud the budget committee for starting saying, you know, we're going to set the maximum that we're going to tax our people. And then we will find a way to live under the tax that we have accomplished. And so I applaud them for doing that. I think it's a wonderful way, just the opposite of a lot of the ways that we've done it. Set that budget. So the wheel tax did go through. I think that I cannot begin to tell you, Christy, how impressed I am with the fact that there were just a handful of signatures on that. You know, this is the greatest county in Tennessee. And I am convinced, moving here 12 years ago, Tennessee is the finest state in the Union. There is no doubt in my mind. I've lived all over the world, literally. But when we moved here, Ann and I, my wife, we felt like we had died and gone to heaven. And I know heaven's going to be a great place. I'm going to go there someday. But I don't think it's going to be a whole lot better in Jefferson County. I tell you, there's some bad things here, but the things that are good so far outweigh the bad things. I love being a resident of Jefferson County, and it's been one of the greatest honors of my life to be elected to the county commission and to help in this process of spending the money that our taxpayers give to us wisely. It's a great, great challenge, just below being a good husband, good father, and a good grandfather.
Well, it is a challenge this year, though. It is a challenge. This week, of course, you mentioned that you were unable to attend the last budget meeting. They sort of have them separated out where they're dealing with the budget and then when they're dealing with budget amendments. So when they were working on the fiscal year 15-16 budget, that was on Tuesday evening. And it's always hard when nonprofits come up.
Absolutely.
You know, that is, as you said, the heartstrings of the county, and that's difficult. And they made a tough stand on Tuesday night. Basically, they cut everybody out, zeroed everybody out, with the exception of the Boys and Girls Club, which got $60,000, which was a $20,000 cut to their budget. The Humane Society got $7,000, which was $23,000 cut, and then the Chamber and EDOC got $180,000, and the Chamber got the remaining money of the hotel motel tax, with that EDOC funding coming only from the hotel motel tax. So I think Director Potts said somewhere around $240,000 was the expectation. It could go $275,000, it could be $235,000. So the Chamber's looking at somewhere between a $60,000 to $100,000 cut. Now, that was a little, you weren't there, but I'm sure you've heard that there was kind of a pushback on that. regarding an amendment particularly that was offered by Commissioner Sills. And actually you have spoke to this in meetings before, accountability for funding. Do you support that amendment that he offered?
I feel like I do. I tell you, Christy, I haven't really looked at it completely. John Neal Scarlett, who's chairman of the Budget Committee, I had John Neal on my show yesterday morning, and he made a good explanation for it. He uses a term we use in medicine a lot: you eat what you kill. So this puts on the back of the Chamber of Commerce their need to really aggressively go after tourism and all the industry and whatnot, because certainly hotel motel tax is a function of tourism in our community. If we can raise that tax a little, as the mayor has suggested, and I'm all in favor of that. I think that at 4% now we're very low compared to our neighboring counties. If we can raise that tax, then it might give the chamber and EDOC the money that they need. And I hope that that can even be furthered as we have more hotels and motels that come up here and more rooms available for tourism.
As tourism grows. So, you know, that brings, in light of that, that brings another question up, which the mayor has offered some, I guess, tax alternatives. Mineral tax at 15 cents a ton, increasing the hotel motel tax. Tuesday night, a couple of those came before the Budget Committee and were voted down. And that included the increasing the hotel motel tax and the mineral tax. They were packaged together, which the opposition appeared to be more regarding the mineral tax than the hotel motel tax. And then there was some question about whether they could even be done during this, because of where we are, the General Assembly is right now, Tennessee General Assembly, that's just not possible this time anyway. So, you know, I know that you are part of a roundtable meeting with the mayor, the finance director, and John Neal Scarlett, Budget Committee Chairman. And you all talked about those alternative means. And are those something that you support?
Yes, thank you for asking, because I do have a position on them. Again, the hotel motel tax needs to be raised. There is absolutely no doubt about it. I travel a whole lot. I mean, I'm gone just constantly with my American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, and I spend a lot of nights in motels. The only time that I ever notice the hotel motel tax is in Washington, D.C., where it's out the roof. I mean, and usually I'm not paying for it, but it does come down on my expense thing, and I see what my academy's paying for it. And my goodness, I think it's like 15% or more. Cities have taxes, counties have taxes, regions have taxes, states have taxes. And we are so low here, and we're in a tourist area that is rightfully so because of our beautiful geographic area. People want to come to this area. I walked through the courthouse coming here for the interview, and there were tourists there looking at our beautiful courthouse, all of the exhibits that were there, and I'm thinking to myself, these people came here because there is something here to see. It's something that people, especially my age, that like history, want to do. So I am very much for the hotel motel tax. The mineral tax, the only reservation that I have, I think the mayor's points are excellent. These companies are taking very valuable resources out of our county. They are using them to make a lot of money. These are our resources. Yes, they have the right, the law, because they've signed deeds and lease agreements and whatnot. But other counties have this, and certainly it makes sense to me that if you're taking something out of the county, that we need to have some particular revenue coming in. Our roads are much worse because of these huge dump trucks that are going. We put up with this going through school zones. Sometimes I'm not real pleased with these trucks speeding and things like that. Now, if we get some revenue for this, it would make it more palatable, I think. So I don't know. The one thing I worry about, Christy, is 15 cents a ton too much? Would the zinc mine shut down? Would they threaten to shut down? I don't think so, because what I've read about this zinc is really good quality. It is needed in medical things. You know, zinc is a part of all of our multiple vitamins, and you just can't get zinc, the medical quality zinc, in a lot of places. because most zinc mines in the United States have a lot of lead. So I am for this as long as it does not cause us to lose jobs in the county or squelch the mining. But for instance, many people don't realize we're sitting on natural gas in this county. The Holston River Valley has a whole lot of natural gas. I happen to own the mineral rights of my farm there in North Jefferson County. I actually have it leased right now. The only reason, though, that they're going to drill is if the price of natural gas goes up. World crisis, the Middle East, where we need heating from natural gas, that automatically would go up in price, and then it would cause drilling, even at my property possibly, where we would tap natural gas. Should there be a tax on gas, natural gas leaving our county? Absolutely. I guarantee you in Texas, the oil that leaves there, or Oklahoma, there are taxes on that particular thing because there is a need for increased infrastructure if you're going to have these large mining operations or drilling operations. So I'm in favor of that.
I know that during that same meeting that Budget Committee Chair Scarlett brought up maybe a meter tax on utilities, not taxing the actual utility, but maybe on the meter of $1 or whatnot, and that would be a huge money generator. Is that something that you'd like to look into?
I think so, because that spreads out the tax over the entire population of our county. We should not tax, in my opinion, one particular group or another, but we need to spread the tax as evenly as possible. You know, my Appalachian electric bill last month was $258. Putting another dollar on that's not going to matter that much. We have a barn apartment. Those boys that live there, their electricity was $338. $339 is not going to be that much of a difference. I know it's a little bit of trouble on the part of Appalachian Electric or our water utility district here, Sandy, whatever it is. I'm on a well, so I don't get that. Sewage and things like that. Again, this spreads the tax out, and I'm all for spreading it. That's why I was for the wheel tax. Property tax, you know, what was it, 7 pennies or a little more that was raised last commission, last budget year. And certainly property tax is something that we can do as a commission legally very easily. We can walk in tomorrow and raise the property tax. I mean, we all get voted out in the next election, but we still have that opportunity. But the wheel tax was one of those things that I thought spread it around better, so I was for the wheel tax.
Now, another thing that happened at that meeting, and I keep talking about a meeting that you weren't there at, but that's okay, because I know.
Let me defend myself. I'm the past president of the Lakeway Medical Society, which is part of the Tennessee Medical Association. It's 3 counties. It's Hamlin, Jefferson, and Granger County. We invite the Cobb County folks down because they're unaffiliated, so to speak. And we have our meeting once a month, and I was there as the past president. We've had a lot that's happened nationally and at the state level in the field of medicine, and so I was giving a report at that meeting.
Well, during the IDB chairman, Larry Masters, stood up and he gave a report, and you know that the Industrial Development Board is looking at some property in White Pine,
right.
And they have, you know, what he said was that I guess they haven't actually written the check, but they have made a motion and secured, you know, or I guess said that they would allocate the funding of $25,000 per 3-month intervals to hold that property if the property owner accepts that.
Right.
Now, Finance Director Potts, when I interviewed him, he said, you know, I just don't know if we have enough money for the infrastructure to do anything with this property if we can afford to purchase it. You know, we're going to have to look at a lot of different loans and different things. Where do you stand on this?
Well, we absolutely need industrial property. There is no doubt. If we're going to attract industry, and we need industry because right now the taxes are on the back of the individuals in our county, on the taxpayers. And if we can secure industry here, then we're going to help alleviate future tax increases. So I'm all for good industry. I don't want it to be such that ruins the environment or that causes pollution or noise pollution as much as any other pollution. But if we can attract good industry, and what they tell me is that we've got to have industrial park property. We've got to have space available for these things. White Pine is a great location for this. That property, I've driven by it several times looking at it. It's pretty flat. It looks like it would be very close to the interstate, be good for industrial development and all. And yes, we're at a tight spot financially, but we can't just say because we're in such a crunch, we can't even look at this. So I'm open to anything. As you know, you've been there. I go to the IDB board meetings as much as I can, and I try to listen very carefully because I'm learning. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I've never purchased a piece of property for industrial development, and so people like Larry Masters are very, very important in helping us along to get to the place. So yes, I'm for that, even if it requires us going out of our way to find some more revenue sources, if indeed we can make this happen. But I listen to Langdon Potts very carefully because he knows our financial situation better than anyone else.
Yeah, he has, Director Potts, as I said, I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, I think, and he said, when he was asked the question, can we get a no property tax increase on this budget? He said, yes, but there are no sacred cows. You know, we've already started the process, the budget committee has, obviously with the nonprofits. Now, the big two are coming up, and that's going to be the Department of Education and the Sheriff's Department. You and I share something in common. I think besides myself, you are probably the only person who goes to most every meeting in the county.
Yeah, my wife's there.
We see each other often in meetings as the media, rather than just
exactly
you know, sometimes you're on the other side of the table, but sometimes you're not. So you're at most every school board meeting. And so you have some knowledge of what's going on with the Department of Education, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that they have on the table right now and how that's going to affect the county. Maybe some renovations to White Pine School that they're going to be asking for in the near future. There was an extensive capital projects list that was passed out at the last DOE meeting. And some of those are set out for 2020, but there's still, this is an 8-year budget crunch that we're looking at, and 2020 falls in those 8 years. And then obviously there's technology issues because of state testing requirements that they're going to have to be meeting with regard to computers and that type of thing. And then at the same time, got to find some money somewhere. So how in your mind is that going to play out? I know as a commissioner, you have to be sitting in those meetings thinking, oh, you know.
It's a hard question, Christy, but it's a fair question. I ran on the platform of schools. I love education. I've got more degrees than the thermometer, and so I really do appreciate our schools. I think we've got some of the finest teachers in America. You know, you can make more money if you go down to Sevier County or other places, and yet our citizens, our men and women that teach in our local schools stay here because I think for teaching it's like medicine in a way, it's a calling. So I want to support the men and women in the classroom, on the football and basketball fields and courts. I want to support them every way that I can. And so my answer is very careful in that we have to provide for our schools. There's no doubt about it. But there's a whole difference between wants and needs. And I think we have to differentiate that. And the reason that I join you and other citizens at our school board meeting is because I'm trying to understand the seat that they sit in. You know, all of those people are friends of mine now. I've known Jim Vines for a long time. Anne-Marie Potts, I've always had tremendous respect for her and her leadership. Now Bill Jardigan, who's been a friend since I've been here 12 years, is trying to herd the cats, you know, in the box at the school board, just like Jimmy Carmichael does at the commission. And I really do appreciate the hard choices that they're trying to make. I've gotten to know Coach Bradley, and I didn't know him before, and so You know, he comes at things a little differently, but yet he really comes at it with a passion and a great heart. And I've had a tremendous amount of respect that I've learned for Coach Bradley and what he's trying to do. So these folks on the school board are really having a difficult time. I want to understand their position, because then when I am asked to give them money as a commissioner, and that's my job, to fund them, not to micromanage how they do it, but to say, we've got this much money that we can give. So I come about it, I guess, the way that Budget Committee Chair John Neal Scarlett's doing. How much can we tax our people without overtaxing them? And then how can you as a school board help me to make sure that you are fiscally responsible with the amount of money that I give you? And that's so important, because if I understand that they're coming at a responsible rate back to me, then I'm going to do everything that I can. Now, that's a really around the world way to answer your question. Let me try to be a little more specific. As I understand our situation, and I think I do, we have got to be austere in the spending of our taxpayers' money. When one of my favorite commissioners, Rita Music, informed us that they had trailers, portable buildings out there at White Pine, and one had graffiti written on it. I heard her passion, and I told her, Rita, I will go with you if we can find some 5-gallon bucket of paints, and I'll help you with the roller, and we'll paint those portable buildings for you. So I hate portable buildings. However, I find from one of the White Pine school teachers that they actually are a little larger than the classroom she had before they got the building. And I know Russ Turner, my District 4 fellow commissioner, had to be in, of course, the portables. And he didn't seem to mind it that much. But still, I'm not a portable classroom person. And I know the cafeteria at White Pine needs some renovations and whatnot. We just have to realize that we can't do everything, and we've got to proportion that out. And I trust the school board, I really do. I trust Dr. Edmonds. I think he works at it very diligently, and I trust them. I just hope that they realize when they come and say, I need $100, I might have to say, I can give you 90. And try to use it as best you can. And I am so upset. You and I were at the school board meeting. I had no idea. And that's why I'm going, because I am getting educated myself at these meetings. I believe it was Sherry Fincham, but it could have been someone else, brought out the list of tests. I mean, it was that thick. It was so many tests that our kids are having to take. And what disturbed me more than anything else was that they don't get feedback. And that made me angry, because if you're going to test these kids, please give it back to our teachers so that they can adjust the curriculum, see where their deficiencies are, and make them better teachers. Because if they don't know how our kids, and so many of these tests are government mandated, and you know my phrase, TMG, too much government. I think that there's no child left behind, and I'm really not a Democrat or Republican. I lean more Republican, but I tell you, this No Child Left Behind really hurt our education. Get the federal government out of our schools. Get most of the state government out of schools. Let our local people do what they know is right for education. Do we meet the standards nationally? A test a year, okay. But this huge volume of tests is terrible. That's why we're having to have all these computers. Not to help educate our kids, but to test. And Coach Bradley made the point, and I think it was so right. He talked about pupil-teacher integration, where they got time in the classroom for the teacher and the pupil to be teaching and learning. And that doesn't happen when a kid is sitting at a standardized test, especially if you don't get the feedback. So I am so excited that Lamar Alexander, our senator, and the thing that Corker and Alexander, our two senators, do, and I applaud them so much, is they reach across the aisle in a bipartisan fashion. And now he has teamed up with Patty Murray. Now, if you know anything about our U.S. senators, and I know many of them personally, but Patty Murray is about as liberal of a Democrat as you can get in the Senate. Yet she understands from an educational standpoint, like our own Lamar Alexander, who was Secretary of Education at one time, they understand that these are not good things for the United States of America that's falling far behind in our education, especially in math and science. So I am so excited that they're going to propose legislation maybe today that will go out to the full Senate. Hopefully the House will be in favor of it, to get rid of a lot of these standards and testing that are mandated from Washington rather than mandated from Dandridge, Tennessee.
Right, and
I'm passionate about this.
And I'm very glad that you discussed that, because actually that was on my list to talk to you about. That is coming up,
yes.
And it does look like that they have across the aisle support, and so that's going to happen. I know that No Child Left Behind was. Sometimes in education there's a flavor of the 7 years or 10 years or whatever, and that was the most recent, but it did pose some problems on the local level for
absolutely
and cost some money.
It costs a lot of money, and that's probably why when you build schools or buy computers and do all the testing, and we've had more people in our central office that are having to work with all these mandates instead of being in the classroom where they should be. That's my goal is to have every good teacher in the classroom, have them well funded, and make sure that they have the resources and the time to do one-on-one with their students.
Now, on the state level, there's some stuff going on in education on the state level too, and I know that that you closely follow the state and national politics. I know that on the national level, of course, it's through your professional organization, which you have served as on the board of the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. You're on their board of directors. You've been very active politically with them, and I want to ask you a couple of questions about that later. But I know that also on the state level, you stay connected as far as that goes. Common Core obviously has been an issue. It's been an issue across the state. People are unhappy with largely the testing. Testing's big business. We're talking about multi-millions of dollars going to just a couple of companies. And so, and a lot of people don't realize that it is big business in the state of Tennessee. And Common Core with the PARC assessments and then the TCAP still being given, so it's kind of double dipping. And on the state level, there's been some movement to try to adjust the Common Core standards. Now, I think that's kind of being put on the back burner right now because they've discovered that too is going to cost billions of dollars yet again. Obviously, you think we're over-testing because you said that we're over-testing. How do you feel about the action on the state level for choice in schools?
I'm very much in favor of choice because Senator Frank Nicely and I have talked about this several times, and he tweets about it a good bit. And I do absolutely believe that we need to have more control at our local level. Listen, we've got a great school board, we've got good administration, we have wonderful teachers. Let us choose what our kids need to know within reason. Let us have the option of choosing our textbooks and helping with the curriculum ourselves. Basic overall standards, but the majority of the decisions need to be made in the local schools, and I don't believe that's happening right now.
On the state level, of course, they're always trying to tweak education. As you said, sometimes more than maybe what the state and national needs to be tweaking local education. I know that one of the things that looks like it's going to find favor is the voucher system. Being able to choose your school, and I'm not sure whether that's going to be. It's a little dicey to me when I read it, whether they're just talking about choosing to go to a private school or whether they're talking about being able to pick your public school. And I'm not sure they have those parameters worked out on that yet. How do you think how's that going to impact the local school system and actually as a commissioner funding, because that's going to impact funding obviously for your local school districts.
Yeah. I'm a product of both private and public schools myself. My children growing up in South Mississippi, they started in elementary school in an Episcopal school. It was smaller, classroom size. We did not have nearly as good of public schools in Mississippi as we do here in Jefferson County. And so we had to do what was best for our children. We just, you know, it all comes down when you're a parent, you have your children's best interest at heart. There are a few people that homeschooling is a great option for them, and I'm libertarian enough to think that parents need to be totally involved in the education of their children. Now, I'm not naive enough to know that a large number of children in Jefferson County Public Schools come from single-parent families or no-parent families. In working with the sports teams here, as I do as the team doctor for Jefferson County High School, it just pulls at my heartstrings when I see kids that are living with an aunt or an uncle, maybe a cousin or something, because they have a parent in prison, they have another parent that's left, that are no longer involved with their care. And so there are lots of different options. So I would stand up for anybody's option to send their children to the education of their choice, as long as it, you know, just passes the basic standards. I do have a lot of heartburn, Christy, about pulling money away from our public school system for any reason at all. Now, I know that in some communities, and boy, what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, with all the fraud and the scandal that was going on, where they were changing test scores and whatnot. What a horrible way to teach our kids about integrity and honesty and hard work and all. To have an educator that's convicted of this sort of thing is just terrible. But our schools in Jefferson County are good. Now, are they as good as any other county in the state or school system? Probably not, but they're really good. And so from my standpoint, my grandchildren are going to public schools because they're quality schools. If all of a sudden I found myself having to raise a grandchild again, or rear a grandchild is the correct grammatical term, I would have no hesitancy whatsoever putting them in the public school system of Jefferson County. I really feel like that our elementary, our middle schools, and our high school are doing a good job. And you know, the evidence is there. Look at some of the outstanding students at Jefferson County High School that go on to the military academies. They get appointments to West Point, Annapolis, Air Force Academy. We have kids that go on to Ivy League schools from here. We have kids that end up with really high ACT scores, and they're able to accomplish what they need to in life because we have basically good schools. Can they be better? Of course they can. And Dr. Edwards will be the first to tell you he wants to improve our schools. Dr. Walker at the high school, all of our principals and teachers are constantly wanting to do better. So if it means taking school money from our public schools with this voucher system, I lean away from that because I think we need every penny we can, especially with the mandates. We didn't mandate all of these tests right now, but we have to do them. And unfortunately, it costs money. Now, would I work to try to keep the budgets down to where it's more local controlled? Yes. But as it is right now, I have a hard time taking away money in any way from our public school system for any reason.
I've obviously seen your resume, so I know where you've done your education, where you've gone to college and that. But I've also read a couple articles about you. And one of the things that I found interesting was that when you made the decision to go to medical school, that you decided to do it through the military.
Yes.
Because they financed your education. You made the tough choice and you put the time in, and actually you have served not one but two branches of the military. You served in the Air Force initially, which is where you did your first stint, 28 years or 26 years?
I was a commissioned Air Force officer for 28 years, starting all the way back in medical school, November the 9th of 1974, when I raised my hand took my commission, and of course there was 3.5 years of medical school where I was an Air Force officer, and then moving on through residency, and then in my time in the Air Force.
And then you came in after retirement from the Air Force, then you went with the Army. And you are a retired colonel with the Army.
The United States Army.
So I'm interested to hear your take on Tennessee Promise, because you're a guy who, when it came down to making the tough decision, you funded your education.
Well, it's true because, Christy, my father was an Army first sergeant, okay? My father and mother didn't have a lot of money, and so I had a very simple choice: borrow money or borrow time. And because I came up through a military family and always had an appreciation for the United States military, it was very easy for me to say, I want to serve my country. I really think every child, when they finish high school, should have an obligation to either serve in the military, in the Peace Corps. I think that our country is so great that children don't need a free ride, and they should always serve in some capacity somewhere along the line. And it was a privilege for me to wear the uniform of my nation in the Air Force and the Army.
And obviously, you've done well for yourself going in that route. I mean, it suited you, and you have a good, you've had a good career. And with this Tennessee Promise, one of the questions that I have had personally with it is about personal commitment. K through 12 is a mandate. Anything beyond that is a gift. And most people, or at least in generations past, you worked for it, you did something. And this Tennessee Promise it's a big price tag to send everybody to junior college. What do you think about that?
Thank you, Christy, for asking about Tennessee Promise, because I think at face value, increasing education for all of our citizens is wonderful. Now, as you know, I was a big proponent of rebuilding Building 8, making it the top place, because I do think the vast majority of our kids in this county need more of a vocational, technical type of an education rather than rather than college level type things. Because the majority, if you go major in art history in college, you're probably going to be asking, do you want to supersize that as they flip the burgers? Because there's just no room for any more art historians. Maybe very, very few if you're top notch. But, we major in things that we enjoy, but you got to look at the job market. Tennessee Promise is an effort to try to get kids to go on with their education, whether it's technical or academic. And I think that's wonderful. But, everything costs something. And so I have a real heartburn about kids not having to have some skin in the game. So with Tennessee Promise, if I were on Governor Haslam's committee that chose that, what I would have insisted was, number one, that these kids can go to community colleges free of charge, but they've got to keep their grades up. First of all, they've got to have exhibited in their high school years a predilection for an academic career. If not, to a technical career, fine, and our community colleges are strong in those, and they need to expand them so that the great heating and air conditioning skills they've learned with David Seal over at the high school can be furthered in the community college level, but they've got to keep the grades up. If they don't keep the grades up, then they're out of the program. Now, by way of disclosure, my son-in-law is the organic chemistry teacher and the pre-med advisor at Walter State Community College. And I've asked him this very same question, and he tells me exactly the same thing. His job, for instance, is when some of these kids come in all wide-eyed and in love with the thought of being a doctor, especially a sports medicine doctor, and they've made C's in their science classes at Jefferson County High School, it's his job to quickly show them that they are not going to make it into medical school or optometry school or physical therapy school. And so we have kids that have gifts. Some of the times, it's amazing. I can't get out there on my car and hardly change the oil because I don't understand it and whatnot. Could I have learned to do it? Maybe so. But I have tremendous respect for those people who are plumbers, who are electricians, who are 18-wheeler drivers. I can't even back my pickup well, much less an 18-wheeler. So everyone God has given special gifts. And I think Tennessee Promise is a good way for kids who really have the initiative that want to go on. But we have to realize that it costs money. It's costing the taxpayers of our state. And we, as elected representatives, need to make sure that these kids get into programs that they can excel at, that they can feed their family at later on, and that is something that they're capable of doing.
I want to ask you a couple of questions on the national level, because I know that you spend a fair amount of time in Washington, D.C.
I do.
And because of your position on the board of the Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, you do keep your thumb on what's going on in that regard. And I know that there's a bill that has just passed, and I'm sorry, I don't know the number, but they call it the Doc Fix bill is what they're calling it. They're just in layman's terms. And the way I understand this bill, correct me if I'm wrong, is that basically what was happening was they were coming to a deadline where the Medicare, the amount of Medicare payment that the doctors were going to be able to receive was going to be dramatically lessened, which would dramatically impact the level of care that the average citizen was going to get, because doctors were going to opt out, basically.
And let me jump in here, because I think I'd summarize it very quickly for you, Christy, because I've been living this for 12 years. As president of Mississippi Orthopedic Society, president of Southern Orthopedic Association, and then chairman of the board of the American Academy, which is 18,000 board-certified orthopedic surgeons. And orthopedics, obviously, I think is a great specialty, but the statistics speak for themselves. Orthopedic surgery is the best organized of all the medical specialists, cardiologists, anesthesiologists, radiologists, all these. We are number one. Even though we're only 2.7% of physicians in America, our academy represents 97+% of all board-certified orthopedic surgeons in the United States of America. And we have many international affiliates because we are such a well-organized group. Okay, so the Board of Counselors represents the grassroots of all the counselors from every state. We have at least one counselor. The 4 regional societies is how I got on the Board of Counselors from Southern Orthopedic Association. And we have the military. We have one from the Air Force, Navy, and the Army. So here's 110 people from all over the United States, and we come together for the purpose of advocacy, of education, unity, trying to keep the left great toe surgeon and the right great toe surgeon all in this same thing, because we are all first orthopedic surgeons. Now, advocacy is the middle name of the Board of Counselors. Why? Because if we don't go to Washington and we don't really instill in our legislatures, very few people have the kind of legislature like Dr. Phil Rowe, who understands and gets it perfectly. But if we don't make sure they understand that our citizens need access, as our patients, to musculoskeletal care. It's amazing right now, Christy, and you can tell I'm very passionate about this because I've lived it a long time. It's amazing that in medical schools today, we don't get a lot of training on musculoskeletal injury and illnesses. Yet 30% plus of a primary care practice is musculoskeletal in nature. So we as orthopedic surgeons feel like that we need our patients to have good access to our care because we're the specialist in the musculoskeletal arena. Now this SGR, and I could go for literally hours on this because I have talked in national symposia on it. What happened in 1997, Clinton was trying to balance the budget. He and Newt Gingrich formed this alliance and they put together this omnibus bill of reconciliation, and they said Medicare is our biggest problem and the entitlements that health care brings. So here's the pot of money that we have. If it goes up more than the increase of living, the CPI, the index, whatnot, then we're going to have to somehow curtail it. So they said, we'll pay the hospitals, we'll pay the therapists, we'll pay the drugs, we'll pay all of this, and what's left over, we'll pay the doctors. Woo! Well, it happened, and it was an incentive to try to keep physicians trying to decrease the cost of medicine. However, physicians only represent 12–13% of the cost of medicine in America today. Now, we control a little more than that, but still, we don't have any influence on how much a total knee is charged to the hospital, how much aspirin tablets are charged, or these big cancer drugs that now are in the thousands and tens of thousands of dollars per treatment. So we literally were handcuffed in this. Well, starting in 2003, all of a sudden, we have this fact that physicians are going to be starting to get cut. And I'm not talking about 2 and 3 and 4%. I'm talking about 10, 15, 20, even up to 30%. So there have been 17 patches in the Congress. Rather than dealing with it head on, there have been 17 patches since 2003, some as short as 3 months, going forward to the place that now, as of March the 31st, we were going to get cut 21%. Well, there is no business hardly in America today, much less a medical business that's strapped, that can take a 21% cut. So 52% of our population, roughly, give or take a percentage, are on health care entitlement insurance, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, in Tennessee, TennCare, TRICARE, like I'm on as a retired Army officer. Well, those 52%, we don't set our prices. We either take it or leave it. Medicare tells us how much it's worth. Well, suddenly 21% cut, we realize that our overhead is not even going to get paid. So what do we do as physicians? Well, we don't have a choice. We have to start limiting the number of Medicare, Medicaid patients that we can see. There are physicians, there are orthopedic surgeons in America that have totally opted out of Medicare because it pays low to start with. Some of my friends in Atlanta, the Peachtree Orthopedic Group, for instance, do not accept Medicare patients. They accept the patient, but they won't accept their Medicare. So they come in, they say, an office visit's $100, and they say, well, Medicare's going to pay $52. Well, you get the $52, which you can get from the government as an individual patient, and then you have to pay us the $100, okay? It's really a difficult thing because then the patient has to file their taxes. Well, this SGR was a permanent repeal of that flawed SGR, which stands for Sustainable Growth Rate. It's a permanent repeal of that. It was a bipartisan thing that happened in the House and the Senate. The president realized what a horrible thing it was, and he said, I'll sign it if you can get me the bill. The House voted 392 to 37 across party lines. There were only 4 Democrats that voted against it, even though John Boehner, as a Republican speaker, led the charge, and we got it passed. Phil Rowe went on the House floor and said, this, if it passes, will be the most significant thing that I've done in my years in Congress. Well, the Senate, I asked Bob Corker, how is it going to vote? Because they recessed without doing it. It was really heartburn for us who were so anxious to get this thing out. He said, oh, John, it'll pass with bipartisan support. However, it came out of committee with the possibility of 6 amendments onto it. Fortunately, all 6 amendments were voted down, so it came up to literally midnight this week, in which we were going to get cut 21%. The Senate voted 92 to 8. The President's going to sign it. And fortunately, all these 12 years of hard work on the part of us at the Capitol is now a good thing.
So, you know, I can't not ask this question because obviously this is one of the biggest things that's going to become, you know, over the next year, a better. Everybody's looking to 2016. Hillary Clinton just made her declaration that she's going to be a candidate, hoping to get the Democratic nomination, and probably will. She doesn't have a whole lot of competition on that behalf, but on the Republican side, it's a frenzy. It's already a frenzy. You know, Ted Cruz has come out, Rand Paul, Marco Rubio. They've committed already. But there's what 6 or 7 that are still sitting back there. Bush, Walker, Huckabee, Santoro, probably Christie. You know, he says he hasn't made up his mind, but that's just saying he hasn't made up his mind. Probably. It's a full field.
And you haven't said my favorite choice yet.
Okay, who's your favorite choice?
Well, and that's a great question. And you know, any of us that would even say anything now, it's pure speculation.
Sure.
I've noticed on Twitter that Senator Frank Nicely really likes Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was one of the 8 of the 100 senators that voted against the SGR. So he's not on my favorites list right now. Neither did Marco Rubio.
Rand Paul was the only one that voted for it.
He did vote for it, and then John Barrasso. There's 3 physicians in the Senate, and of course all 3 of them voted for it because they understood what it meant for patients in America. You know, is Medicare a great system? No, but we can't just cut off our citizens from health care. So my favorite will not get the nomination, nor will he be president, but my favorite's Dr. Ben Carson. A year ago, I had Skylar McBee of University of Tennessee fame, who I had chosen as my patient, and in March of last year, we were on the Hill stumping for research from the NIH for musculoskeletal conditions. And so suddenly Congressman Rowe said, "What are you boys doing for lunch?" Anytime your congressman says, "What are you doing for lunch?" you always say nothing. Now, I was supposed to have a lunch on the Senate side with somebody, I forgot who, but I said, "Nothing. What do we need to do?" And he said, "I want to take you to lunch with Ben Carson." So got to go over, and I had my picture made with him, and I reminded him of 20 years previously when he had spoken to the National Baptist Medical Dental Fellowship. Great little organization. I'd been president years ago with that. And Ben Carson, what you see is what you get. He is as honest as the day is long. He's a great Christian man. His story is immaculate in that he came from a single parent family in Detroit. What a wonderful gentleman. What a brilliant man. Great ideas. Will he get to be president? No. He probably doesn't have the fund on foreign affairs that he needs. He's being handled by someone that I like a lot, a fellow named Armstrong Williams, who is a multimedia mogul type of a guy. I think he would surround himself with good people, and he would be a good president. However, President of the United States this day and time has to be photogenic. They have to be articulate. They have to have a great fund of knowledge, and more than anything, they have to understand how to sidestep questions. My personal feeling is that Barack Obama has been a total failure as the President of the United States. Not just because of his ideological position, although I differ from here significantly, but he'd only been a senator for 2 years. He was not ready to be the President of the United States. I think Hillary Clinton would have been a much better choice at the time. She carries into this office a lot of baggage as a retired military officer. I'm very worried about her email problems that she had with a private server. I have looked at several of our retired officers here in Jefferson County and asked them, if you think that we had done something like that, where would we be? And the answer is Leavenworth. Because literally, this is not acceptable at intelligence level. And how this happened and how she got through with all of this, I really don't know. I have no ideas of her motive. I think Bill Clinton was a credible president. He had some problems, obviously, but he knew how to reach across the aisle. And I was his doctor for 6 hours in Kosovo, so I did get to meet him and shake hands with him. He's a cordial person. He's charismatic. I have a very close friend who's chairman of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery in Little Rock, Arkansas. Chelsea was the flower girl in their wedding. And so they know the Clintons very well. Is he a politician? Absolutely, but you're not going to be president of the United States unless you're a very, very good politician. It remains to be seen, Christy, and that's really speculative right now. I don't think Rand Paul and Ted Cruz can really make it because of their extreme libertarian type of views, and they differ significantly. Just because they're both on the right does not mean they think alike. You know,
right.
Rand Paul and his libertarian state really doesn't think that we need any involvement internationally and whatnot. Ted Cruz does not believe that. So I don't know what will come out. You know, I think the front runner right now is Jeb Bush simply because he has the Bush name. I really don't think George Bush was a great president. I'm not real pleased with the legacy that he left. So will Jeb Bush do better? You know, he's part of the Bush family. I think his father was a better president. I think that Scott Walker's got a shot. I've asked all my Wisconsin friends, and they love Paul Ryan, who's head of the Budget Committee right now, who's the vice presidential candidate under Mitt Romney. They don't like Scott Walker. They think that he plays the politics too much, and so I'm a little bit worried about him. I do believe in some of the stands that he's made, but it's hard to say. It's anybody's guess. Won't it be fun watching it? And it's great for people like me and you, because now I have something to talk about on Morning Coffee with Doc. You have something to write about. I really hated that Bob Corker just slammed the door the other day when he said, no, I'm the North Star for foreign policy, and I'm not going to get into it. One little name that people have asked Bill Haslam and whatnot. Just keep on the radar screen one other name in Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. Marsha will probably not be a presidential candidate, but she would be a phenomenal choice for vice presidential candidate. She's from Laurel, Mississippi. She was born there a year after my wife, no, year before my wife, year before me. I was born in Germany in the Army. But I knew her family. I've known her friends down there. Marsha Black, what you see is what you get. She is an awesome lady. She's a wonderful leader. She Mississippi State graduate. She can ring a cowbell with the best of them. Even though I'm an Ole Miss grad, I am a Marsha Blackburn fan from way, way back. I just think she's a wonderful person and would make an excellent vice presidential candidate and could step into the role of president if something happened to the president.
Well, hopefully, as we get down in a little closer in, maybe you'd be willing to come back on and we can talk some national politics.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to ask you before I let you go about two things that have recently come up. One is not recent, is the landfill situation.
Oh.
You're vice chair of the audit committee.
Ooh.
And you've had a joint meeting.
Up until now, Christy, this interview has been pleasant. Now, really, you've asked. Okay.
Okay, so tell me what you're thinking and where we stand. What do you guys know?
We don't know where we stand. That's the biggest problem. We don't know where we stand. And I talked about it the other night in the box. I call it the box, where we sit as county commissioners, thanking David Galt for coming up, because I didn't realize, David gave me an education with the things that are going on. I think Langdon's on top of it, our finance director right now. Joe McHigh has a long history of whatnot. And so I just hope we can get to the bottom of it, because that's money that we're committed in the long run, and now's the time to be making the budget fit what our needs are going to be. But we've got to do what we've got to do, because as you know, and your newspaper has really reported well, thank you for doing it, this Rush Strong school situation is horrible. How do we get into these messes? Well, we've got a lot on our plate, but Rush Strong can be a literal financial disaster.
Sure.
Is it polluting the Holston River to the extent that could cause us that much problem? Maybe not. But it's not how actually things are happening, but how they're perceived. And being on this EPA's radar right now with this, I've woken up several nights thinking about it and saying, please, Lord, don't let it be any worse than it is, because we could have financial consequences later on, and I hope that this will happen. So the landfill, the Rush Strong
and it's my understanding that Rush Strong is operating on a limited permit right now. That situation is not put to bed yet.
No.
And then also you have the sign issue now down at what's 424. I know you spoke strongly about the fact that commissioners, in as much as the sign, just commissioners need to know when something's happening in their district.
I feel so passionate about this because, people look to us. When I go to church on Sunday morning, somebody's going to stop me and say something about something to do with county government. I get calls at my house. I applaud that, because I really want to know how my citizenry feels. And Commissioner Huffaker ran on this platform, and she beat a good incumbent, and she won the most votes, even beating out Todd Kesterson, who's an excellent commissioner. So this has been a passion of hers, and for her not to know that this signage thing was going to come up, I think it's a terrible thing. If that happens in District 4 and somebody didn't tell me, I'll be just as passionate as Commissioner Huffaker.
Sure. Yes or no answer. Elementary basketball, good idea, bad idea?
Bad idea. I wish I had a lot of time to explain it to you, because we are not letting children play we're trying to make them into professional athletes too early. And I don't think this is a good idea.
And I got to give you a plug. Coffee with Doc, 99.3.
99.3, brand new station, WNRX. I'm on every morning, 6:30 to 10:30. You can call me, you can tweet me, you can email me. We are interviewing lots of people. We want the public to be involved because you and I are in the same identical business, and that's communication. The better informed our citizenry is, the better we will have a county.
Thank you very, very much for being with us today.
Enjoyed it so much. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jefferson Post.